Jeremy Mackenzie is a Canadian veteran and political podcaster who was debanked last week. Jeremy is the canary in the coal mine when it comes to the slow creep of authoritarianism in this country. And it was very disappointing to see Rebel News, the largest alternative right-wing media company in Canada, implying that he's mentally ill, that he's an alcoholic. It's very disappointing to see, and it's very uncomfortable to have this conversation, but we need to. And that conversation starts right now.
I promise you, I will not let you down.
The trucks parked outside illegally should move.
Canada's Conservatives will meet our Paris climate commitment.
Enough with the woke. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I take that back.
To champion our conservative principles.
We are the party of law and order.
To call in the auditors. We haven't yet decided whether we're going to call for the government to impose a mandatory test or vaccination.
And we will win the next election. Canada must not ignore the reality of climate change.
Why weren't Canadians vaccinated in January and February like everyone else?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Controlled Opposition, Episode 4. With me is a very special guest tonight. I like to call him the #1 political dissident in Canada, and he seems to be living up to that reputation, being the most banned man, the bankless man now. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Jeremy Mackenzie. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I never liked a bank anyway. Who needs them? Who needs them? Thanks, Rick. How are you?
Well, I'm doing better than you. I can say that much.
Sure, that's what you think.
It was very inspiring to see that people really, right after the announcement of you being debanked, it was going viral the next day. You had Viva Fry tweeting about it. And Viva Fry even started a fundraiser for you, which is very gracious of him. And I let the link for that in the description below. If you want to support Jeremy or support the show, then go on down to that link, which is GiveSendGo.com/Mackenzie. Yeah, I also sent out a tweet earlier in the week, which was, hey, Rebel News, hey, Jordan B. Peterson, hey, True North Center. I really hope you're going to talk about this, because this is like we're seeing the slow creep of authoritarianism happen in this country. And obviously, you've kind of gone through the gamut over the past year here. But when it comes to the show Controlled Opposition, I knew we were going to get into this topic eventually. I didn't realize it was going to be happening so soon. And that topic, of course, is the journalism. Like we started off the show saying, I'm kind of tired of talking about Justin Trudeau all the time. Okay, because there's a lot of valid criticism for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. And it's the same thing with the media. I'm kind of tired of talking about Toronto Star all the time or CBC all the time, because of course there's a lot of ridicule and criticism that we can direct towards CBC and Toronto Star. But there are alternative right-wing outlets that are also worthy of criticism. And I thought, after seeing the way Rebel News kind of reported on your story, it's time to talk about this. I know you're somebody who likes to, really be a leader, be strong in the face of horrible things. But how did it make you feel, honestly, when you saw this kind of reaction or this kind of reporting from Rebel News on you being debanked?
I was surprised they covered it at all, actually, because as you're aware, and many other people are aware, they have a pretty good track record of pretending that I don't exist. I assumed that's probably how they were going to go with it. I watched the clip and I was really surprised at the lack of professionalism, at the pettiness, at the kind of, offhanded jet. Like this seemed like a reason to we're just going to attack this guy and shit on him. And then basically just send us money. It was kind of a throwaway. Like there was no, and again, I don't care. I've been through a lot. Right. But I imagine if I'm not me, if someone else to be, to be treated like that and talked about in that way, and the stigmatization of veterans and stuff, and just a lot of really zero thought, very lazy put into this, and things that were said. And it's just, like you were saying earlier, it's one thing to go on about the, the Liberal Party of Canada. We can do that all day, but what they're not going to do or care anything, They don't care what we say, and we have a lot more power potentially in trying to police our own ranks, as it were. And I think that's something that should be done. I don't think that I don't really like this idea where people are, don't attack your own side. We need to have better standards. We can't allow, things like this need to be addressed. And I would have said the exact same thing if it was about anyone else, not just because it was me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll get into the very first clip right now. I was shocked when I saw this, and yeah, we'll just play this right now.
Now, to be clear, I don't personally know him whatsoever at all, and what I do know about him, I'm frankly not all that impressed with. I think he's a deeply troubled character who doesn't do himself or the people around him any real favors, and because of that, he is in an absolute world of hurt and trouble. But none of that changes the fact that Mackenzie should be able to use a bank in this country the way convicted terrorists and rapists can use them. And he's been ordered to stay away from booze, and I think that's probably a really great idea. Domestic assault, rape, child sex offenses, and still use a bank in this country. You can even be an outspoken, vulgar, crass individual with mental health and addiction struggles and still use a bank account in this country.
Like, they don't exactly make you sound good here, at all whatsoever. They're associating, rapists and criminals like right with your name. It reminds me of when we first started to run for the People's Party in 2019, and another candidate there had a story that their name was in this article right next to this guy with like a swastika tattoo on his chest, and it's like just like putting those two things together in a news article really doesn't make you look good, And
it's deliberate. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, it's to say that there isn't any sort of like knowledge of what they're doing. It's like, it's hard to say. And I guess we should have a disclaimer. Like, we're not saying that, oh my God, Rebel News has controlled opposition. We are here to have this conversation and to simply be critical of journalism, just like we would be critical of journalism on the other side of the aisle, or critical of journalism from legacy media.
To not criticize people on your side, like, so I'll use this example from my time in the military and the special forces specifically. They would never ever tell you, they would never come down and pat you in the back and say you were doing a good job or anything. Like, that's just not how they operate. They would look for everything you were doing wrong, and criticize you on absolutely everything that you were doing wrong, so you could eventually you're as perfect as you can possibly be. To just accept, good enough was never a part of the lexicon. It was always like, nope, do it again. You suck at this and you suck at that. And you should be doing that for the purpose of rounding out your abilities and your skills, so that overall everything comes up. If you're doing something very well, there's no need to address that, because that is running optimally. There's nothing to be done about that. Everything's running exactly the way it should. Carry on. There's no reason to spend any time there. So you go around looking for, the weeds in the garden, as it were, to pull them out or fix the problem. So when you see something like that, it's like to not address it and not say something about it does everyone a disservice.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I was going to say this in the intro, like, number one dissident in Canada. You could also say you are one of the number one rebels in this country in terms of being outspoken. And it really pains me, and anyone who's a fan of you, it really pains me to see you characterized like this, because it's not like you went viral once or you had like one kind of nice speech here or there. Like, you have been doing this for years now, and you're making a living off of it. And quite frankly, we're going to talk about this later, you are kind of a competitor to Rebel News when it comes to podcasts specifically. You broadcast on an on week, like over 9 hours a week, and your podcast, if I'm not mistaken, is already back in the top 50 of Apple Podcasts Canadian political news downloads. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. After taking a couple of months off, I went to have a vacation. I was just tired and I wanted some me time, so I was like, all right, I'll go to prison for a couple of months.
Yeah, he went to jail, folks. He's kidding. His vacation was the Saskatoon Correctional Facility. Really great food, really great accommodation. And
I'd also like to point out that I am definitely not in a world of hurt. I don't know who got that impression. Do you have that? Does anyone else? Am I giving anyone the impression that I'm like really struggling and suffering over here? Well, that's definitely not the case. So I don't want anybody to get that idea.
And what bothered me about that is the implication, which is, well, he is saying all these things, and like that's why this is happening to him. Like, there was kind of an implication of that in the way it was framed. which I really don't like, because let's face it, when they attack Rebel News for various reasons, it's because they are so innocent and valiant, and they're so truthful, and they're the best, and they're the best. And it's like, I tend to agree. You know what I mean? Like, you are doing the news, you're trying to do your thing. And like, especially because you are somebody who wants to oppose the Trudeau regime, I'm going to stand by you, Rebel News. I'm going to stand by you, even though maybe there's some things that you've gotten wrong in the past, which I'm if I'm not mistaken, there are valid criticisms, but because you are the one on the chopping block, I'm going to stand by you. So that's why it's really sad that when you're getting attacked, they're like sort of standing by you, but like throwing mud all over your character.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I mean, and it's not a show. Like, I'm very confident in my position, and I'm not worried. I sleep fine at night because I know what I've done and what I haven't done. I know what the situation is. I know what's true and what isn't true. So I'm a popular guy to hate right now, and I have been for a while for a number of reasons, because the subjects and the targets of my criticism and my words are powerful people with something to lose. I don't sit here. I don't waste my time engaging in this Facebook boomer gossip and back and this guy's a fan and that guy's a. I don't care about that. We have monsters running this place, literal, real live monsters that are preying upon the people of this country, people I signed up to defend and protect, and I mean, why would I waste my time, with this kind of stuff? So obviously they're going to attack me, and this is what's going to happen. And that's the main issue. That's the cause. It's like taking time out of a war because, your neighbor parked his truck too close to your, like, who cares about that? Yeah. We've got bigger problems.
We've got bigger problems. That's exactly right. There is so much lies, incompetence, and corruption happening in this country. And of course we can talk all day about how Trudeau's guilty of this and guilty of that. But the whole reason we started the show is because, well, Pierre Poilievre isn't doing that. And you're right. It does seem like a very petty thing to, instead of focus on the lies, incompetence and corruption going on, it's like, well, this veteran guy, he has like a whole bunch of these issues, and like, we're going to talk about all these issues. And did you know he said this once, and he made a joke about that the one time? And it's like, is that really something that's relevant? And no. we're gonna talk later and bring that up, because it's like, this is actually feeling like cancel culture-y, which in my opinion is what I do not like about the leftist establishment. And it pains us to see it happening on the people who are supposed to be, supporting us. Right. And
again, it's disappointing to see people that are all, it's just because it's me. It's like, well, there's all these accusations. Exactly. They're accusations. Nothing's been proven. I've never even been to court. Nothing's been proven anywhere. Nothing's even been tested. And you're believing the word of, well, who said this? Oh, well, the corrupt media and the corrupt RCMP. Oh, well, then that must be the end of the story. She herself admitted at the opening. She doesn't know me. She's never talked to me. That is accurate. She's never even tried to either. There was no inbox, empty, phone, no missed calls. I'm not hard to get a hold of. It wouldn't have taken her very long, and I certainly would have taken the call or replied to an email had they even bothered to ask for my perspective or comments or clarification on any of the number of wildly inaccurate things that she said. But they chose not to do that. Don't get mad at me. I didn't tell you to show up and do a bad job at work today. So.
And that's exactly it. This, again, folks, this isn't about like, Rebel News is this or that. We're following the truth, really. And the job for them is to do journalism. And speaking of that, we're going to play this next clip here. Where, it speaks to not doing a great job as a journalist. Here it goes.
Back to Jeremy Mackenzie. Who is this guy? Well, according to the Liberals, he's a terrorist. He's the founder of Diagolon, which is, according to the Liberals, some sort of accelerationist terrorist group akin to Hamas. In reality, I think it's a joke about carving North America in half diagonally to keep the Liberals on one side and the freedom-minded people on the other. It's, I think, a flag company with a joke attached to it.
Now, to be fair, not everybody knows the lore of Diagolon,
but I do, and you could have asked me.
This is true. And I mean, while we're on the topic, we obviously have to. You've told me this in private before, but I think it's a good time to bring it up. Which is, you're talking about how they ignore your existence. And when the whole Diagolon thing was happening, the Emergencies Act, for those who don't know, Diagolon is a made up meme that Jeremy made up while he was live streaming one night, and it became a running joke. And the point is that the CSIS, the RCMP, senators in the senators in the Senate, and then members of Parliament in the House of Commons started to use this word Diagolon to associate essentially with your podcast community. But instead of calling it a podcast community, they're like, this is a militia that wants to accelerate racial tensions and like all this insanity that is based on a bunch of lies, essentially.
Right.
And this is a huge, huge, huge story. Okay. This is the largest institutions in our country running with this meme country idea and essentially using it to justify the use of the Emergencies Act. This is a huge story. And then
that's exactly what happened. And we had the these hack jobs, these smear merchants, these liars at the anti-hate network and their affiliates who are paid by the government to attack their opposition, people they want to be attacked and smeared and have the reputations, and they lay out all this stuff and say all these wildly crazy that are not verified by anyone. No one's looked into any of this. They just took it at face value. And again, the story is, you can think whatever you want about me or my friends or my whoever's supporters. When the people that are trusted to man the walls at night and protect you and your family and keep this country safe from things like, terrorism, when they can't tell the difference between people on the internet, having fun and talking trash and Al-Qaeda, that is a serious problem. That's embarrassing. That if I saw this happening, I'm sure they have, if I'm in the American intelligence establishment or the British or something, no one talk to Canada anymore. They are a liability. They're a joke. And that's the best case scenario. That's better than the alternative, which is they knew, but they ran with it anyway because there's a political opportunity here. And who cares whose lives we destroy in the process? And very, very probably there could be, people sitting in jail in Alberta for over a year now almost because politics. And it's which scenario would you like? It's one or the other because where's the proof? No, there's never been any proof. None of this, all the stuff that they said, they're out there. They enacted the martial law, basically, the Emergency Measures Act, formerly the War Measures Act, to stop this problem. And my, audience essentially was used as justification for this. And then since then, nothing has happened. If this was such a impending doom problem, where are the arrests? Where are the weapon caches? Where's the leadership? Where is any of it? Nothing happened because it never existed. And now they're running around with their tails between their legs. So again, Rebel was aware of this story. I talked to them about it. They were like, what in the name of God? They blew their minds. And then we worked on this story for 10 days or so. And on a Tuesday morning, it was supposed to be, I was going to, remotely, obviously, we're going to do an interview. And that didn't happen because the evening prior, right before, there's like, something came up last minute and I never heard from them again. So they're well aware. And again, they could have asked, they could have called, they chose not to.
And then it's strange that after being in touch with you for over 10 days and wanting to do a story with you and knowing at least somebody at Rebel News knowing all of the lore about Diagolon and about how it connects to the Emergencies Act and all of the very, very troubling implications of this and how you are sort of being picked on, which is an understatement, really, by the major establishments in this country. The fact that at least someone at Rebel News would know all of this and then turn around and kind of just call you all these names essentially and associate you with like some of the worst kind of criminals. It's really disgusting.
I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody in there. Obviously, no one from Rebels talked to me. I can only speculate. My guess, my gut feeling is they are, chagrined or reluctant to say anything supportive or positive in my direction. Lately because of the peeps, situation, they don't want to, upset those people in that camp. And prior to that, I've been an outspoken critic of the Israeli government as well, and they're obviously very pro, Israel over there at Rebel. And so I think that's probably for those two reasons. However, in the interest of professionalism, this isn't what was the story about any of those things. No. It was about citizens of this country having their bank accounts terminated with no cause, with no explanation. And that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be something that happens in Canada. And is this politically motivated? I think probably yes. A lot of people seem to think that for good reason. They can read a pattern and read a room. And I've not received any suggestions to the contrary. I've never received. They mailed me their letter with their explanation, and it said nothing. It didn't even have a name of anyone to contact. It just said, we're terminating your accounts. You have 30 days. Goodbye. And that was it. So that's the story. And instead it turned into preface this into how much this guy is a piece of trash. And like you mentioned earlier, I've done a lot of things over the last 5 or 6 years, and you chose to focus in on this, you chose to zoom in on the fly in the ointment. He's been arrested a lot of times, geez, over the last few years. No, it was a couple of times in a span of about 6 months, all relating to, well, I can't really get into it, but you'll see. You'll all see. There's not enough crows in this country that are going to be needed to be cooked up, fried, and fed for everybody to eat by the time this is all over. But again, I'll see you when we get there, because we're going to get there.
Yeah, and folks, like, we don't beat around the bush on this show. It when it comes to the world of politics, it's about power and it's about money. And there are political parties that are vying for that seat. PP and the Conservative Party of Canada is vying for that seat. And I'm sure they have a lot of big donors. I'm sure that Rebel has a lot of big donors, and I would not be surprised if some of these donors know each other.
And they don't like me.
And the case in point is Rebel News doesn't really criticize Pierre Poilievre, like, ever, do they?
And that's another thing.
In the comments or in the chat, like, if Rebel News has criticized Pierre Poilievre, please let me know. Let me know what to look for, what to search for, because I would love to see it.
And my take on it is their business model is essentially conservative outrage. They target things that what makes conservatives angry and pissed off and go, oh my God, that's what they do. It's not real. That's what they do. They're not really. I've never seen them cover or say anything critical of anyone in the Conservative Party ever. To be honest, it's basic. But I mean, we've been living under this regime for so long, and I don't really remember the Harper years that well, so I can't go back that far. But that's it. And on my end, I'll go after anybody, because I just basically just trying to live my life. I see something that's untrue or upsetting or disturbing or whatever. You don't get a free pass because you have a blue tie on. That's not how this works. That's what they do. That's what the other side does.
Right.
We have a moral foundation here, and we care about the truth, and we care about right and wrong. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to something that's messed up because some rich guy's going to be upset about it. His panties are going to get twisted up. That's not who I am, and that's never what I'm going to be. So if that's what they want to do, I don't know. I'm just speculating. But again, they have their game. I'm playing mine. I didn't ask to be included. They came and decided they were going to do this, and they didn't even ask my opinion. So that's why we're here.
And that's why we got to have this conversation, guys. It's about the truth. It's about having a, self-respect, really, because, they're disrespecting our friend Jeremy. For those just tuning in, Rebel News, they don't even call you by name. Just, they call you a controversial Canadian vet.
Right.
Right. Which is really upsetting, because it does remind me, sorry to say, it does remind me of the way in which they did this to James Topp. They didn't say, hey, James Topp, very decorated veteran marching across the entire country. The legacy media said, oh, some disgraced veteran who's like criticizing the vax mandate. Yeah. It's like, it's really truly dishonest, because I couldn't even find this because I was using your name and I couldn't even find this article.
And disgrace to whom? Because everyone I know in the veteran community is in awe of that man, and I don't care if they stripped him down to prite and kicked him out of the military. He'll always be
back to Jeremy Mackenzie. Who is this
James
guy?
Topp to me, and everybody else that knows what he's done.
Sorry about that. And I mean, speaking of that, maybe we'll just play this next clip here, clip number 4, because she does say something that's really, speaking of veterans,
I'm going to try not to get upset.
Just breathe. Okay, I'm going to play it here.
And I'm going to take a pretty even-handed approach here, because Mackenzie is a Canadian veteran, and I think he's dealing with some of the psychological fallout and trauma related to serving for 13 or 14 years. And I think that's why Mackenzie does many of the things he does and says many of the things he says. I don't know if Mackenzie's sober now, but I think alcohol played a big role in some of his bad behavior, frankly, much of his bad behavior.
I mean, that's really disgraceful, because to me, if there's anyone who has a right to speak out, if there's anybody who has more of a right than anyone to voice their righteously angry opinion, it's someone like yourself. It's someone who's already served this country and has lost brothers overseas fighting for what this country is supposed to represent. And I mean, I'm sure you have,
Well, yeah, it's not even so much as, I mean, I don't feel like I deserve, I feel like I have to. I feel like it's my duty to alert people to things that I think are wrong and messed up. Why were you in the military? It's like, well, I'm here to, protect the gang, home team and so on. And that's what we're continuing to do here. And to say that to perpetuate the stigmatization of veterans, that like, oh, there's a veteran over here who's yelling about something, he must be mentally ill, I mean, do I have to say it? I don't think anybody really needs me to elaborate. I think they know exactly where I'm going with this. That's disgusting. I mean, that's just flat out disgusting. And number two, are you a doctor? You've diagnosed, oh, I must be mentally ill. And furthermore, this is the cause. This is the this is the pathology now we're going to get of all of the things that I say and do is because of this. Oh, and probably also I'm probably drunk too for everything that I'm saying. It was a gag, a lot of this, Jim Leahy, was famously, drunk all the time. The guy didn't even drink, Again, we could have talked about this. I could have explained a lot of this, but here we are instead. And this is what happens when you get this, laziness, when we allow these kinds of standards to slip, and it's like, oh, it's just that guy. We'll just beat him up. Just, who cares? Who cares? Whatever, Yeah.
And really, like, just to kind of like hand wave it all away of like, oh, well, he's probably got PTSD and he's probably crazy. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like the amount of rants that you've done, and not even just rants, but just like, impassioned speeches. There's too many to count, man. I was online. I found one during the convoy, and you talked about how the person being crushed with the police horse. You were like, "This is a stain on our national history." I'm like, I forgot about this one. This is another great. This is another like classic Jeremy speech. And I hate to say it, but this is a pattern that we're seeing on controlled opposition. Whether we're talking about the official opposition or whether we're now talking about the official right wing media outlet, this is another thing that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals do. They crap on veterans in a very, very gross, despicable way. And it's sad to see Rebel News doing that. I'm hoping that's just like a one-off. I'm hoping that's not going to become a regular thing. I'm hoping that they will try to champion any veteran in the future who is, like yourself, speaking up against this authoritarianism, and not only that, justifiably doing it because you are like target number one. Let's face it.
Yeah. Well, in saying that too, I've been saying this for a while. I've got evidence. If anybody wants to see it, I've been targeted by the police since 2020 and 2021. Before I was ever arrested, I'd never been arrested in my life, and it happened numerous times in the span of about 6 months, not even 8 months, something like that. I lost the train of thought.
That's okay.
There.
I was going to say, Jeremy did a full reaction to the entire Rebel News story here and video. Oh, whoops, that's the wrong thing. But there's a link in the description to his stream, and it should go right to the part where Jeremy is reacting to it. It's a good watch, so you can go and check that out to see his full reaction, because there are some other things that we haven't brought up here that are
I remember now.
Sure.
That's what it was. Like, so again, like they've targeted me for it says right up for my ideology. They don't like what I'm saying. I'm a person of interest to the RCMP in Saskatchewan. Why? Well, probably because I released a video about the RCMP that had millions of views, criticizing them very aggressively for their many, many, many failings in a mass murder in Nova Scotia, where my family live, 30 minutes away from that. Did that cross Rebel News' desk at any time? No. Do you think that maybe could factor into my bad behavior? Like, you're misrepresenting me either on purpose or because you're lazy? I don't appreciate it.
Yeah. And, there is a part where Sheila Gunn Reid says, oh, he's being targeted for criticizing Justin Trudeau. And it's like, I don't think that's entirely correct, because as you just mentioned, it was after you were criticizing the RCMP aggressively and had a viral video right after the Nova Scotia shooting, largest shooting in Canadian history, by the way, most deadly one. And then that's when you have allegedly some evidence that is when the police or the RCMP started to, you're a person of interest.
It's on my Substack. You can go read it for yourself if you like. It's scanned pages. I got it all. I got lots. I got a lot of this. This has been going on for a while, and again, it's going to come out. It's awesome. It's really bad. It's really, really bad, guys. It's however bad you think the corruption and the political leanings are in the RCMP. It's much worse than you would dare imagine. It's worse than even I, and I'm very cynical.
Yeah.
It's worse than even I would believe.
It's like the Twitter files, and it's like we're seeing from Project Veritas, right? It's like, all the worst conspiracy theories you thought are pretty well accurate.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, Project Veritas doing incredible work. as journalists. And, I was at the trucker convoy doing interviews. Apparently I'm a journalist now. And you yourself, this is another really relevant one. Let me just bring this up on screen here. I don't have a good version of it, unfortunately, but there were text messages that were leaked during the convoy. And they were leaked by yourself because, most important part here, because somebody within the RCMP or police forces trusted you enough with the information to leak the information. They liked your character, I guess they could say. They didn't think you were some crazy PTSD drunk person, obviously. And that's why they trusted these text messages with yourself.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Rebel took these and put their own watermark on them as well. Didn't seem to want to care where they came from, how anybody got them. They just kind of, ran with that. And, someone else was saying, like, I'm going to take the heat for this, and I have, and I'm fine with it. I didn't, didn't really play into my mind. It's just, this is, people need to see this. So out it goes. The least you can do is at least acknowledge what the facts of the situation is. I mean, there's a lot of reasons the police don't like me. And that story, buried, gone, deleted, never heard from again because, the heroes in the RCMP. Where did that even go? I think they released a quick statement saying, we're going to look into it. And then that was the end of that. So not only did they trample, beat, abuse, and violently, come on to a bunch of protesters, women, old women, a disabled woman, and a mobility scooter was trampled by a Clydesdale horse. As you can see, they celebrated it. They had a great time. They thought it was amazing, and they couldn't wait to do it again. That should have been the biggest story of the week in Canada. Instead, it was swept under the rug and ignored, and we're just going to move on to other things. It's a sad state.
I think there's a lot more to the conversation when it comes to Rebel News. And again, like, we don't want to be too hard on them here because, let's face it, they do a lot of good work out there. But like I said, we're guided by self-respect and truth on this show. And it's like, when Jeremy's being thrown under the bus and they're also kind of implying all sorts of horrible things about him and how dare a veteran, be impassioned and speak up. It's like, it's really gross, man. Like, we gotta clock him on that, obviously. Yeah. And we will play one more clip here from the Sheila Gunn Reid piece. It's a really short one, but she's listing off all of your, hey, let me go into detail about all of your arrests and all of your charges. But this one in particular.
So you remember. If you don't remember, this guy sucks, and here's why. Yeah. Wonderful.
This one in particular, though, we should talk about. It's a short clip.
Mackenzie's been charged with harassment and intimidation of Nova Scotia's chief medical health officer after a protest outside of the CMOH's home.
So there's a lot more to that story than you just kind of being arrested or intimidated. You were at a protest because if I'm not mistaken, the mask mandates were going to be taken away on most for most kids across the country in schools. But Nova Scotia, at the last minute, the chief medical officer there, maybe I'm getting this wrong, was like, no, we're going to keep the mask mandates for kids. So then yourself, Morgan May, another freedom fighter, your girlfriend, was there at this protest. And if I'm not mistaken, the RCMP was there monitoring the protest. And then the protest dispersed. Obviously, if the RCMP is monitoring it, it's obviously a fine and safe protest. The protest disperses, and then yourself and Morgan May, who are probably the most two popular people there with like a platform online, not only get arrested, but get thrown in jail into solitary confinement for 3 days, and then like kind of get
4 days.
4 days. Yeah. Pardon me. And then get pressured with all of these, bail conditions. Like you won't get bail unless you get ban yourself from the internet.
They wanted that. They wanted me silenced. They wanted me to have no access to the internet. They wanted Morgan and I separated. They wanted her to live at her parents' home in New Brunswick and me to stay here, no contact with each other. It was insane. And luckily, again, I had a good lawyer at the time who I told him, was like, this is what they're going to try to do. And he's like, he couldn't believe it. And then he was argued his way out of it because there's really no charter reasons why these should, anyway. That's, again, they could have got more to the story. They could have called, they could have asked me, and everyone just wants to take it at face value. The RCMP were there, that they loved so much, and they observed us. This went on for days, and we weren't arrested even at the scene. It was much later by a completely different police force, and there may be some severe levels of political involvement in that case. It seems to be potentially, maybe we'll find out. Stay tuned for the reality show of Law and Order. Jeremy Mackenzie, I guess there's going to be a lot of episodes of that coming up this year.
Boom, boom, dun, 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 dun. Boom, boom, dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Oh, I sleep. I go to bed. I have a care in the world. I feel great about. I mean, it's stressful. There's a lot of wild stuff
Right.
going on to a degree, but it's funny. I like to laugh, and when people think that's, oh man, I'm golden. Don't
But
worry.
aside from that, aside from your own personal, what you're going through, it should startle anybody, because this is the authoritarianism that people should be alarmed about. We should be ringing the alarm bells. Hey, these people are getting thrown in jail for basically being at a protest, and because they're popular. Like this is the authoritarianism behavior that I find terrifying, that we've been warning people about for years before this, and now it is happening. And we don't even have Rebel News really reporting on it or caring to tell the crazy story. And along with that,
well, I am an odious dirtbag, so I don't know. If you want to,
yeah,
I just it's funny to the psyche of the Canadian on the one hand agree, like, oh yes, the government is very corrupt and they're lying and they're they're bad, all this stuff has happened, and not because it's me, but just as a thought experiment. Imagine there's someone who's very, very aggressively coming after them, and then the government says, oh no, they're all these bad things, look at all this stuff that they did. Does that seem no suspicion at all? There's no level, no part of you going, this is convenient, I guess not. That's up to Canadians if they want to decide for themselves, if they think that, and they'll see. It's all going to come out, and they'll see what happens. But I don't know. If it were me, and someone is or I'll use a different example. If someone's works at Pfizer, and then they quit Pfizer, and then they become very outspoken against Pfizer, saying Pfizer's doing a lot of really messed up stuff. And then Pfizer says, no, this person's crazy. Don't listen to them. What do you expect them to say? What do you think they would say? Come on.
They're crazy. They're crazy.
Of course.
And again, we're trying to connect the dots here on controlled opposition. And we have, as we pointed out in past episodes, Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party of Canada does not seem to be really focused on the authoritarianism problem from this Trudeau administration. Almost like once they get in power, maybe they'll be using the same tactics. I don't know. It's very worrisome. And then again, we have Rebel News, in this case anyway, only talking about certain pieces of the authoritarianism, when really, in your example especially, it is the most alarming case. And arguably with Morgan May, the phantom gas theft. Have we explained that yet? I think
but that was before I was again arrested another time, and something else they don't seem to. We didn't even know where she was for a whole day. They just we got hit by another car. The police showed up and hauled her away, and I'm like, what for? And they're like, theft. Like, theft.
Wow.
What are you saying? And she was in jail for 4 days, and there's no evidence of this. We've seen no evidence. We tried to, cooperate with the police. They're not interested in that. They just want to
and
whatever. But speaking of that, and the protest, and Rebel News, as somebody mentioned in the chat there, weren't you guys? Wasn't Rebel News outside the Premier of Ontario's house when there was a protest outside of his place, doing essentially the exact same thing that we were doing?
Interesting.
It's a weird take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the consistency there? And it is scary too, because what if you weren't so charming and attractive and had a popular podcast? But seriously, because if you did not have the platform that you did have, and it's just some upset veteran who's protesting, getting thrown in jail, being the victim of all this authoritarian behavior, and if Rebel's not talking about it, no one would hear about it. Like, the only reason that we're hearing about it is because you know how to use a webcam and a microphone, literally.
And again, I didn't ask for any money. I don't ever expect help from people. I do the things that I think I can handle on my own, and if I can't, I don't do it, because I don't think it's right to drag people along with you and be like, oh, I can do it because these people will cover me. You can't assume that, and you don't know that. So I don't ask and look for I'm just going to do the things I do, and I'll suffer the consequences accordingly. But I didn't set up any of this the stuff people just wanted to do it on their own. I completely lost my thought there. What were you just saying a second ago?
I was saying that if you weren't so good at using if you didn't have a platform,
yeah, okay. So the reason I recorded the call and that I do that is because I'm very well aware, and as I've been mentioning and warning people for years, this kind of thing was going to start happening. I know a lot of other people have reached out to me like, dude, this happened to me. This happened to my dad. This happened to my brother. This people I've donated $50 to Convoy. They terminated my bank account. I don't know. They don't have a platform. They go on their Facebook page and upload a video, and their aunt puts a sad emoji like, oh, that's horrible, honey. Like, that goes nowhere, and you just disappear into the void, and no one ever sees you again. And tyranny complete. There's another person's life destroyed that you'll never hear about. Well, I'm like, well, not so fast. You F with the wrong Marine. You know what I mean? Like, I've got. Really? You want to do this? It's going on the internet now. I should ask the guy if he had anything he wanted to say, since this is probably going to be heard by millions of people. But it was worked out the way it was. But yeah, it's not. This isn't about me. This is about everyone. That this is the country you live in. These are the things that are happening. And if when they get rid of me and I'm out of the way, they're just going to go, who's next on the list? Who now when he's gone? Who do they go after next? And then who's next? And then who's next? And they'll just keep going until it gets to the stage where you're in the United Kingdom and you post something on Facebook that the government doesn't like, and they will fine you, or maybe they'll put you in jail because they'll just be like, well, now everyone's you can't do this. You can't. This is where it starts, and it just work your way down.
And that's
is that where you want to live?
Yeah, and that's already the case in some places in the UK and other parts of Europe, where even posting a meme, posting the wrong thing, you can get arrested, and it's disgusting, it's horrifying, it's terrifying, and that's exactly right. You are the canary in the coal mine in terms of being the most persecuted that we know of, probably. You're funding a lot of you're paying a lot of salaries for CSIS by the sounds of it, in terms of like how many people watch you all the time.
The anti-hate network, I think, receives substantial funding. There's an entire cottage industry around hating me.
Yeah,
that says a lot more about the situation than anything.
And the point is too, is that, like you said, like they're targeting you right now, and it's very terrifying that Rebel News is going to quickly kind of just I don't want to say assassinate your character, but like they're not going to stand strong with you. They're not standing strong with you. And it's like, okay, so if they're going to throw Jeremy under the bus, who else are they going to throw under the bus? The next dissident who is inconvenient for them? That is really why it scares me, because I would hope. What's that?
They did it to Chris Sky.
You were telling me about this before, and so can you tell this story?
I mean, it's not super related. It was just an odd, like, it was unnecessary. Like, it was, at the time he was doing his thing and going around promoting his his cause, and just say no and the whole thing and the lockdowns. And they were like, well, what about these Facebook posts from 6 years ago? Like, what does that have to do with it? Is this really the time? Is this really the time? And does this need to happen right now? Is this the point? And just much like you saw in that video, like, is any of this really what really people need to hear about right now? Or is this why we came here? Is this what? No, it's not. But
no, we have the story here. So Chris Sky storms out of interview with David Mendez, and I won't.
I wouldn't say stormed out, but
I won't play the video. But it says Chris Sky fights with Rebel News over anti-Semitism. So we'll have to go back to look at that one. But essentially you're saying that instead of standing with Chris Sky and kind of being like, hey, like you're doing your dissident thing about all these rules, it was like, hey, look at these tweets from however many years ago.
Right. Which it doesn't. So his whole thing was, he's talking about human rights and the lockdowns and the masking and that this is the issue. That's what he's here to talk about. And that's what's going on. And so what? Like, what if he? So let's say he is. Let's pretend. I don't think Chris is, but let's say he is. Say he's a Holocaust denier. He's a full-on neo-Nazi. He's got a swastika tattoo on his face. Does that make anything that he's saying and doing? Is anything else? Is he incorrect about what he's saying? Like,
it's gonna be a tougher sell for sure.
Sure, but it's like, why is this? Why are you bringing this in? It doesn't. I just don't see the value in that. It's really,
Yeah. We got a super chat from Jacqueline, $20. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. She says, Rebel knowingly misled their audience to believe their donations were going to help the 4 Coots boys and helped a municipal politician with the mischief charge instead. they are fraudsters. So I think I did see this actually, because it appeared to be, hey, like we're raising money for the Coots guys. And it wasn't actually the 4 people who are in jail in Coots. It was a politician and a couple others who had mischief charges.
Yeah.
Did you know about this?
There has been a lot of accusations of that. I don't know anything other than that, so I can't really. Again, I'm just speculating, but I have heard stories of a lot of people saying, "Hey, they said they would help me out with this, and they didn't." And I've noticed that I've had I'm on the mailing list, I guess, for their website and everything, and they do often ask for money for things that have yet even to happen. We need money for legal fees because we might get sued. Things like this, it just puts a bad taste in people's mouth.
Yeah, I was talking to people before doing this show, and there was a couple of criticisms which were like, they do all these fundraiser, and there's not really any transparency in regards to like, well, how much money are you raising? Where is that money going towards? And like, it is a little bit hypocritical when we're here to criticize Justin Trudeau. They talk about Justin Trudeau. Where's the accountability? Where's the transparency? And it's like, well, it'd be good to see where, some transparency with you guys, because so many people, and this is important, so many people are afraid of what's happening in this country. They're desperate. They want an answer. Do I support Pierre? Do I support Maxime? Do I support Roman Baber? Do I support Rebel? And Rebel's very good at, getting people excited and saying, send us the money and we are going to save the country. And I mean, I hope so. I hope that's correct, but it's also in a very cynical perspective on it. The cynical take would be, it seems like maybe they're kind of taking advantage of people's desperation and profiting off of it. And that's one perspective. And I think that, when you think of it as a business as well, it actually would make perfect sense for them to go after you, because like we were saying earlier, you have a popular podcast. You are somebody who does oppose the Trudeau regime, and you actually have kind of like the stars and stripes to prove it with all of your trips to jail that are unjustified, right? And maybe that's why we shouldn't give this guy airtime, because maybe people will find his podcast and find his website, and then they'll be like, oh, I kind of like this guy's takes better on politics than what I'm seeing at rebelnews.com. So I'm just thinking, like, not to, again, we're not here to like try and accuse anybody of like, any sort of nefarious plans. I'm just thinking from a business standpoint, there is kind of a logical kind of progression of why that would make sense from a business standpoint.
I can appreciate that. I mean, they've got a business to run, they've got employees and all that kind of stuff, but they're not a t-shirt company. All these like your goal and they're a media company. Well, are they making kid shows? These are serious issues that affect people's lives. And if your primary focus is money, then that is your God now, and you will go where the money goes, and the money goes where the money wants to go. It doesn't go which way is right or wrong. It's just where the money is. And if you do that, then you're now beholden to the money. That's your master now. And we've gotten away from operating on the if you make money, great. I'm happy for you. Good for you. But if you're going to abandon moral principles and the core foundational, the ethical, things that make up who we are and why we're different from the rest of the world and what makes this country what it is, you're willing to abandon that because, it's just business. I don't want to live in a business. I want to live in a country. I want to live in a community that makes sense, that values right and wrong, that values transparency, that values people, that, leadership that has the courage to stand for what's right, no matter, what happens to them, if it's going to be, good for them or bad for them. That's what I want. And to be like, I'm going to shine a light on this, but only insofar as it makes me money. I think you might be part of the problem there, guy,
Yeah. I think we got to play this because it just seems so relevant. This is from Steven Crowder, I think last week.
Speaking of someone like that.
So I'll play a bit of this.
Big tech is in bed with Big Con. The people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con. Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after.
So that was the first kind of clip that he aired of saying, hey, there's people out there that are not really for conservatism. They're actually all about the money, and they're in bed with big tech. And
entire Conservative Party, for example.
Right. And have you been seeing how this has developed with Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire?
I followed a little bit of it, yeah.
I mean, my commentary on it was because he says later on, guys, this isn't about money. This isn't about money. And then I hear him on Tim Pool. I hear him on all these other podcasts talking about, like, we're going through line by line of the contract, how much money, that's not enough money. I think it's a little bit about money. Seems to be a little bit about money. But
again, I just use these examples because like all he talks about is the military. That was my whole life. I don't have any other life experiences to go on. I didn't play for a hockey team. I didn't run a business. I was in the military, so that's what I did. Speaking of like those special forces units and those guys, they get paid a little more, but they are not, making millions of dollars to do things that are so difficult. Like these jobs are demand so much of you. If you're not there for the right reasons, which is because I'm here to be a warrior for the nation and do whatever is required because I want to be at the elite top level of effectiveness and engage the enemies of our country and destroy them, then you're in the wrong place. Because it's like no amount of money is going to make that, any better. What are these guys making? 150K, maybe 120, and that's at the top end. To do this, to be in like essentially Delta Force. They're not. Why they do it? Because that's who they are. So if it's about money, they quit and they go join these mercenary companies who pay them 4 or 5 times that much money to sit around and guard an embassy and do nothing, and they get all fat and lazy doing that. And I would treat this the same way. If that's your primary motive, again, if you can make money, good for you. If that helps you, and then you can employ other people, you can whatever. But the mission or the primary focus is you're what are you doing? Are you telling the truth? Are you opposing a regime? Are you trying to shine some light on something? Are you trying to push social issues or cultural change? Then that's what you're doing. The money is a side effect. It's a byproduct. It's secondary, tertiary, or it's way in the back. It's not. Well, I would, but what's in it for me, and how much am I going to make? That's why we're losing, because we've lost that connection to our moral framework. Like, how about this, for all these people, Crowder, Shapiro, if there was no money anymore starting tomorrow, are you still going to keep doing what you're doing? Would you keep showing up tomorrow? If you had to do this for free, would you keep doing it? Probably not.
Good question. And
I would.
I think this
money, every dollar gone out the window. I've got to pay banks and lawyers, and I live in a wood pile, Greg.
Yeah, all the money that is sent to Jeremy essentially goes to his lawyer, for those unaware. And but that's to say, like, that's kind of a virtuous thing though, because you are fighting the state with your words as hard as you can. So it obviously isn't for the money, because it's it's
cost me substantially more. I've spent nearly $200,000 in and not most of that I didn't even have. This is like fundraising. I'm taking money, all investments, all gone. All it's all gone. Sell this, gone. Coins gone. You dip into the crypto, it's all gone. To just keep going and keep, because I'm not. I refuse to lose. I'm a stubborn son of a bitch.
So being a political dissident is not a good financial decision. Is that what you're saying?
No, if you're doing this for the money or your health or your longevity or your freedom, you're going to go to jail. You're probably going to get. They might even try and kill you. So I don't know. I don't. But you got to be in it for the lulz. You got to be in it for the lull and the memes. Otherwise.
Yeah. And I think this topic we'll come back to on an episode, but let's talk about it a bit more before we go here. We're going to wrap it up soon. But, I think this has been a slow decay over the past few generations, which is, when you first start to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this for my paycheck. Maybe I'm going to sell out a little bit of my country, and my values, but I'm going to do it for this paycheck, for this pay bump. Okay, sure. And that's probably happened over the years. But now, especially in the past few years, it's like, what do we got left in terms of values? What do we got left in terms of a country? And what is it for? For a hot tub? For a nicer vacation? Really?
Yeah. I gotta get some new pipes on my bike. That pretty much encapsulates the entire compromising. Okay. We've been making compromises forever. And when you compromise, sometimes it's a good thing. It can be a bad thing, but you're giving something away. You're lesser than you were because you had to make some kind of compromise. But there needs to be a point where how much are you willing to compromise? We've obviously compromised on the pride flags and all that. Now we're doing transgender story time for 4-year-olds and dildos and all that. Where does it end? And this happened because how did it happen? Not all at once. It was one brick at a time. And then maybe a lot more at once than it was, but somebody made a compromise. Somebody said, I will relent. I will kneel and back down and let this happen because, I'm going to get money, or there's going to be something in it for me, or I need to get elected, or this isn't popular, or CBC wants me to say that, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And we've had generation after generation of weak men compromising for their immediate interests. They've sacrificed the future for the now where they are. How heroic of you guys to, look out for the future. So, people like me and you, do we even have a chance? This place has been getting cut up and sold out since the 80s, the 90s, and then 9/11 and everything after that. People growing up now, they're in their early 20s. They don't even know what's been taken away from them. They don't even remember what we used to have that is now gone because people would compromise with awful people. And now it's like I'm saying enough is enough. We're not going further than this. I'm planting my feet right here in the ground, and this is as far as she goes, fellas. If anything, I'm taking things back. Like, well, no, you can't do that. I'm done being told what I need to compromise on and change this and change that. That's it's not my fault that the entire landscape of so-called opposition in this country that is supposed to be standing against this, globalist march to global terror, enslavement, whatever you want to call it. It's not my fault that they couldn't be bothered to really make much of a defense or anything. They just rolled over and showed their belly. I'm doing the best I can, and they'd rather boo and hiss and that guy because I'm going to get attacked. All the enemy fire, a lot of it is coming in my direction, and they want to make sure they're standing far away from me. I had people reach out and say stuff like people I've never heard from, or people I haven't heard from in a long time, especially, and to feign concern. I'll be like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, man. This and that. And they
this is after you're debanking. Just for the context, this is after he's debanking. People who have not talked to him in a long time are reaching out all of a sudden and feigning concern. You're saying,
right? And be like, oh, the injustice of it all. That's not what they're concerned about. Their concern is, and they're more upset about this. You brought this up. More upset about the debanking than when I was imprisoned, because. From their worldview, it's fairly unlikely. I mean, we're not near that stage yet where the government's just going to come after, small time people and just throw you in jail and this kind of thing. But they might take your bank account. So this made it more scary. Like they can imagine that. They can't imagine the RCMP coming to your house, making a bunch of shit up and throwing you in jail. That just doesn't seem realistic to most people. And trust me, it doesn't until it happens to you.
Right.
But the bank calling you on the phone and saying we're terminating your bank account because, well, the new rules and the new whatever, that they can envision. So this is purely out of self-interest. This is out of self-preservation, not because of the moral reasons, which is this shouldn't be happening to anyone. And people will be like, oh, well, I can't be seen to support you though in public because, my image and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. It's more of the same. And it's like, you're going to kneel now, you'll kneel later, and you'll always kneel until you stop doing it, until you stand up and say, I'm off my knees and I'm never going back down there ever again for anyone. Until you start doing that and you don't compromise anymore, you're always going to keep doing it. It's the same thing as the mentality of, I'm going to go to the gym, but I'm going to go tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, like, I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll do it. You just keep putting it off. And in the meantime, you're just getting fatter and closer to death.
Yeah, it is really disgusting. I was pointing out to Jeremy before. It's like people got so outraged over the debanking, but it was crickets when it was the thrown in jail 2 times for a bunch of like unsubstantiated charges. And I think to be fair to these people, I think in their worldview, it's more realistic to get screwed over by like a major bank or like Bell Media or something like this, because they're used to getting screwed over by these large corporations. But it is troubling, because I think that is scary, because it does speak to the, well, what about me and my money? Now I care.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so we've basically been completely disconnected from, what this nation means, what freedom means, and, standing up for one another and honor. That's all out the window. Now that it's going to affect, your down payment. Now, okay, now I care all of a sudden because it's going to affect me and my stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
It could. You're right. I've compared again. We're going 3 for 3. We're going to knock it out. We're going to do another war metaphor. It's like if I got hit by a sniper. And I'm laying there bleeding like, crap. And somebody comes over, and instead of going first aid, like, well, where were you standing? So I don't want to get shot. Where exactly were you when this happened? So it doesn't happen to me. Like, I'm bleeding. Like, I know that, but where were you?
I would like get you to a medic, but like, I don't want to be seen with you,
because they might shoot me I sympathize, but I don't. It's just crawl away. I'll handle it myself, worm people. Just writhe away like you always do. I don't need you.
We got to stand up for one another in this country. That's going to do it for us today, though. Thank you so much for being on the show, Mr. Mackenzie. And, you know, there's a lot of work to be done in this country. Let's face it, you know, and like you were saying before, I like what you said, which is we got to criticize one another. We got to hold each other accountable to be better. And we got to be honest. And it's going to be messy. It's going to be uncomfortable, but we got to do that. Any final words before we leave the people tonight?
No, that's actually the same thing. And I don't, that's not, it may seem, again, we live in a society of rounded edges and smooth corners and chocolate cakes and high fives and rainbows and everything. There's always a happy ending and the good guys always win. So to criticize people and to kind of, they don't like it anymore. We have a very weak and soft society, and it's actually it's funny that they interpret this. Oh, they're attacking me. They're doing this. I want them to be better. I want our side to be unassailably good. I want it to be so, laser focused and so effective that it just, destroys these people and we just wash them off the face of the earth. And we can't do that if we can't honestly point at each other and go, this sucks what you did. You need to do better than this. So, and they should be able to go, you're right. I should. And then, we pick each other up and dust each other off and we go back at it and we're better for it together as a team rather than this nightmare show where we're all just pointing fingers at each other and stealing money from everybody while these monsters get away with our future, quite frankly.
Yeah, and if you want to support the show and support Jeremy Mackenzie, you should go over to GiveSendGo.com/Mackenzie. Big shout out to Viva Fry for starting this fundraiser. David Freiheit, he is being debanked. The link is down in the description below. So if you want to support the show, then please forward that money on to this fundraiser. And yes, salutes 07s to Viva Fry. Thank you so much, sir. And with that, we are going to get out of here. And as we always say on the show, it is okay to demand higher standards. See you guys.
Cheers.